Fantastic. So let's get started. So, good evening, good morning to all the people in the room. My name is Aman Dubey. I work as Chief Learning Strategist with a learning design studio by the name of Learn Tech. I'm going to be talking about how to use simulations in training and creating an immersive experience. And this is going to be okay. So, a little bit about myself. I've been a learning professional for now over 15 years of pure training domain experience. I'm also the author for the book on gamification. It's called Gamification for Training Leaders. It's the best rated book on the Amazon India Kindle store. I've been sharing a link to pick that book up for free without paying a cent. I'm sure you've leveraged that. If not, just let me know in the chat. I will share the link again. Um, okay, so I was also recognized as top 25 most promising training consultants in India. I think a year or two back. I work as chief learning strategist at LearnTech, the learning design studio, where it's my mission to develop cutting edge learning design and technology type of solutions for our clients. So that's the work that we do. So let's get straight into simulation. What is simulation? So let's just take a minute and let me ask all people in room, what do you think about, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Or, forget first thing, let me just ask you, how would you define simulations, specifically for training? So let's just take a minute. Let me know your thoughts. So, guys, as you are taking your time, let me just walk you through what my understanding or the lens through which I look at this word simulation. And I do that specifically from the purpose of seeing how I can, leverage this concept to create winning solutions for my clients. So, simulation for me is really reality in a sandbox. That's the ultimate definition. Uh, for me, what simulations really are. They are reality in a sandbox. So what is a sandbox? So sandbox is something that kids play with. They put all the sand is in there. They can you know uh, do something and just mess it all up and rebuild something and things like that. So as we go through that experience, we learn a lot by, in a way, acting out how we would in reality. But of course, it's a sandbox environment, so whatever we do stays there and it doesn't have any real world impact. So what we are saying about simulation is that it's the idea behind simulation is creating artificially e-learning experience or any learning experience that mimics the real life events and its consequences, so that learners can act out their strategy, face the consequences without the real world impact. So that is the definition, as the way I feel most is fits well from the perspective of the scope in which we are going to use simulation. So it's basically an artificially any environment created artificially, which is a learning experience. It has to mimic reality and it has to mimic the consequences of taking actions. And the learners can act out their strategy, learn from their mistakes, and without really having a facilitator or a coach around, they can make sense of what is happening and understand the rules of the game in that specific reality and be better prepared to deploy their strategies thereafter in the real world. So the best thing that I like about simulations is that it develops something known as consequence cognition. So what does this fancy word mean? It means that um, you know I take, so let me take an example. I'm in a leadership conversation situation. Person comes to me and says, hey, leader, I need your time to discuss my appraisal. And I have certain options in which I can react. And one of those options could be that, Aman, this is just not the right time. I'm just about to go out for a lovely dinner with my family, and I'm going to be off after that. And why don't we just pick it up sometime you know later next week? So, I could take an option like that. I would do that in a real leadership like situation if I do not know what are some of the consequences of my action. So, what a simulation will help me do is that the moment I am able to deploy a strategy, it will immediately give me a sense of what happened as a result of that. Simulations, I believe, are in terms of teaching life, they are slightly better than life, in a way that in life it takes for us a lot of time, or it takes for the events some time for them to get played out before the actual consequence of the effect of the cause does get play out. It takes a little longer for us to witness that. And at times, what I have seen is that by the time things do get played out, and we come to know of the consequence, we forget what the original cause of all of this was. So, for this reason alone, I believe simulations are a great tool for training leaders, for learning designers to build into their training strategy. Simulations, like I said, with the help of simulations you are able to build a consequence cognition. Now, an argument against this could be that all of us do have a cognition of what are going to be the consequence. I would say that yes, if we think about it, we may come up with what are the consequences. What we want to do through simulations is that if there are consequences that are going to lead the company or that person or the leadership culture in that organization into a bad shape, then we want to make that consequence, have its complete gravity in terms of what it actually leads to, and give people a sense of that this is not a light stuff that you could just wing. This is something that we as a company pay a lot of attention to. It's something very important for us, and look at the kind of damages that what one could cause basis some of the causes that we display in our behavior. So guys, let me know if uh, you are with me on this definition of simulation. If you differ from me, that's fine. I'd love that. Let me know how you would like to define simulation. Simulation, by all means, is used across many industries, and the way we define simulations, or the way we understand it and articulate it, actually, to my mind, unleashes the potential of simulations. So let me know if you are with me on this definition of simulation that I have created and presented to you. Hello, Philippe. Good to see you back. Hello, Ananta. Good to see you back. By the way, how's the weather in Bangalore? Is it getting chilly already? By the way, here in Delhi, it's getting chillier by the day. So fantastic. Let's get back. So for training purposes, when do we want to use simulations? I will share with you my own experience of a time, which is about year and a half back, maybe 2 years back, when the word simulation had caught so much of fancy with our fraternity that I would get, just a lot of calls from people saying that we want to use simulations in our training. So I said, fine, but why do you want to use simulations? And then the answers were that, because it's the latest in thing and people love simulations and things like that. So as you've been following me along the Learning Design Summit and listening to some of my thoughts on, comments like these, I would take this opportunity to reiterate that using something just because a lot of other people are using it, or using something just because it's the fanciest thing around, these are traps that I call the magpie syndrome. So these the next shiny thing syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. I think as learning designers we have to stay guard against these imaginations that we get at times, and not get carried away with that. If simulations in training have, if they are warranted, it's a good point, or it's good to use them. But if we just want to use simulations for the heck of it, then really simulations cannot do any magic. Simulation, like any other thing, has it has certain principles and rules, and they have to be designed by somebody uh, who's putting in the time and effort to build a simulation. And it is all the simulations that we do in our studio, it is for one single reason, that is to create business impact. If you think what you can do with simulations can help you get there, then it's a great tool. And I will be talking about some of the case studies and some of the work around simulations that we have done. And yeah, you would see that why simulations look different, especially in the work that I will show you. uh, Everything that we've done has been with the primary motive of creating business impact. Um, so, with that out of the way, a quick reckoner on why do we need to use simulations and when to use simulations in training. So the first one is that learners feel they know the subject but are not inclined to learning through regular modality. For example, senior employees. Now, at times, the management of any organization, it's built up of people who are extremely busy, and they just hate the word training for themselves, because of course they're experienced people, and uh, have spent a lot of time growing in the organization or in their industry as a professional. So for them, they are constantly, although learning, they talk about they're constantly learning, but in general the practice that I have seen is, if there is a requirement to put together a training program for very senior leaders, then senior leaders are not very inclined, for the reason that it's going to waste their whole day, and other things, they don't want to sit through another preaching session, so to say. So simulations are a great tool to use with audiences who are not really inclined to traditional form of learning. So that's one use case. The second is the measurement of application is more important than knowledge. So to give you an example of this, let's say you are training your people on compliance. Now, are my people all aware about what the compliance policies are? Is that more important for you, or how people use those compliance based policies at work or in different situations? Is that more important? So this is a quick question to go back to the drawing board and look at Bloom's taxonomy and say, okay, what kind of a training am I building? Am I building this training for awareness, or am I building this training for application? If it is a training for application that you're building, then simulations is definitely a good tool for you to look at. Another use case is when you want to conduct online digital programs which are scalable and yet be able to create personalized reports and recommendations. It's absolutely difficult to scale this practice unless you use a tool like simulations. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are a company with you know and you are responsible for leadership culture building, and you have created, and there are about, let's say, 2000 mid managers in your organization, and you want to create a personalized report and a recommendation plan for each one of them. How do you go about that? Of course, it can't be scaled through a classroom. If somebody tried it, it's going to be not such a good outcome. So simulations comes in very handy, because the simulation system can understand how a learner is behaving, and then use that intelligence to identify what the profile of the learner looks like, and can create some recommendations basis the demonstrated actions in the simulation. And that acts as a very good starting point for the HR and training teams to say, hey, we did this simulation for our leadership team, and here are the analytics that we've got, and let's see how can I now identify better the needs of our people, and then create further learning tracks, or help our high potentials with a mentorship program or a coaching program to really work on the areas in which there are demonstrated weaknesses, or demonstrated gaps. So in areas like these, yeah, simulations is really the answer. This is where it really plugs in this big gap which traditional training modality cannot solve. Okay, so another place to use simulations is task oriented training. Not generic knowledge based training. So task oriented training could very simply be, let's say you're working with a group of technicians and they have to fix a machine. So of course it doesn't make sense to go into the theory of the machine and all those things. You have to be able to show the technician where is it that you need to unscrew something, and what it is that you need to do with it. How can you identify if it's fixed, or if it's not working, and how do you fix that, and how do you put that back, and where do you put that back. So very very tactile training requirements wherever they are. Simulations is a great tool to completely mimic what it is that people will see in real life and create a sandbox version of that, and people can try out their strategies and get to see did the machine really function after they fixed it and things like that. So task oriented training simulations is a great piece, that a great tool to use. Okay, another place that we've used simulations very effectively is when we are asked to create learning programs that are interesting and engaging. So, of course, simulation has that wow factor built into it, so that people feel like they are, they're not doing a training program. It doesn't look and feel like a training program at all. So, wherever the need is that we just don't want regular training, we want something fun, interesting, interactive, engaging, things like that, then their simulation is a great tool to try out. Okay, one other piece that I want to talk about is wherever there is requirement of understanding of multiple disciplines or subjects. To give you an example, let's take bank manager. If you're putting together a training for a bank manager, uh, you would cover your all the subjects first. So capital financing, different products and tools that you need to sell as a branch manager. How do you manage your resources internally? How do you do resource allocation, things like that? How do you manage your staff, keep them motivated? So there are so many skills and disciplines that the bank manager has to be adept at for him to run a branch of a bank profitably. How do you how would you create a training which encapsulates so many different skills? I would say simulation is a great tool in use cases like this, where you want to test a person or give him a sandbox environment where multiple disciplines or multiple expert areas can be tested, or they can be seen that a person how would a person use these skills which are not related to each other to get to a business outcome. So these are, uh, of course, this list is not exhaustive. I've just been able to put together what I think makes for a good use case to really consider simulations as a way to train. Now, here's a quick note on this webinar. See, what's going to happen is I'm going to share the practitioner's experience of working with simulations for learning purposes, solving real life business problems. This by no means is a research paper, what I'm presenting to you. I'm presenting to you a practitioner's experience. So please look at it from that light. I'm not going to be dropping in researches from Harvard Business Review and Stanford Graduate School for Business and things like that. I'm not going to be talking about that at all, um, because I want to stay focused for the purpose of this webinar on how we can use simulations. And at the end of it, I want to give you guys enough ideas to go back to your workplace and say, okay, Aman showed me this was able, he was able to use simulation for a use case like that. I have not a similar, but a very close kind of a use case. So I think I can use simulations there. So my intention in this webinar is to give you ideas and show you that simulations can really help learning designers building more engaging content. And you should be able to go back and do this with your own audiences. So that's the idea. Now, another piece that I want to put up front is that simulations, from my view, are not just serious games. It's application of simulation principles. Now, the moment we say simulation anywhere, drop this word in our fraternity, people generally tend to think that simulations mean something to do with virtual reality and very 3D looking things, and you should be able to manipulate a 3D object and things like that. And I understand these are connotations now associated with simulations because the fancier ones look like that. However, simulations is not just very serious games. It can be light, fun style games or gameplay that we can create using simulations. Another thing I want to say is that, and this goes out for all learning designers, training leaders, and learning consultants, which is that don't try to impress business with technology, especially virtual reality or 3D. Scalability of these experiences is very, very difficult. So, not once, but many times, what has happened is that the training leaders in organizations get very excited with newer technology things, and they want to dive in to see how they can leverage it for their organization. Um, Typically once they go to the business for funds, the business doesn't see merit in those ideas and those investments these people are talking about. So as you prepare your own business case to put together a simulation for your own people, remember that creating, virtual reality or anything in 3D, they look great, they feel great, and they're good for demos, but they don't make such good candidates for um, implementation when you are looking at scale. And if you work for an organization where you want to do things at scale, then 3D virtual reality right now here in India is just not the way to go. No matter, we've got high Mbps connections and all of that. Just deploying these is an extremely difficult task unless you are able to put together like a dedicated learning lab where the hardware is tested and it's optimized, and there is this one place where people can go to get trained and come back. If you can set up a lab like that, then I would say go in for these fancy stuffs. Otherwise, if your material is still going to get accessed over browsers on the mobile, in the app, and things like that, then I would say don't get caught up with I want to make it fancy and 3D. Just work with the principles of simulation and stay focused on the business outcome that these simulations will create for you. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to show you some of our work, and I will talk about how did we get around developing that, and what business case did we solve for that specific organization. So here is the first one. This is for a company that we did where they had a massive number of new managers coming and joining the organization. And these typically are mid-management people who have to take care of multiple variables during their work day. So right from stakeholder management to their own team management to peer network management to making sure that the work keeps happening. So a lot of those things. And what was happening with this specific organization was that people were getting overwhelmed and they were quitting or not showing up or performing very, very poorly. And all this demotivations was there for everyone to see within the first 2-3 months of people joining or getting promoted as a manager. So the brief given to us was that the new managers get overwhelmed as they join the company with too many pressing situations from different sides. How to help managers, new and old, identify their natural styles and adopt new strategies. So this was the use case. This was the brief given to us. The solution that we developed, we thought on the lines of, okay, so if people get overwhelmed during the day and with all the happenings during the day, so how does that day look like? So we pretty much, me and my team, we worked with the client to, so to say, create a sketch of how a day in the life of looks like for this manager for whom we are creating this. So we pretty much simulated a day in the life of a manager with all the variables like teams, stakeholders, peers, created a full experience of a day in a manager's life and captured his natural style of dealing with situation and mapped his actions to competencies. So the way it worked was as we simulated these day in the life of style of the manager. What we ultimately wanted to do was to be able to identify the natural style of that person, which in the language that the business and HR will understand, which is the language of competencies. and be able to create some kind of a contrast to say which competencies were displayed, demonstrated well, which weren't, and of the ones that got demonstrated, to what degree of proficiency were they demonstrated. So just capturing these three ideas with that. So I'll talk about the impact. So what we were able to do is, create a simulation. Ran it across their mid management, 2,000 odd people, and everyone had to take that simulation, short simulation. And what it would do is, it would give a snapshot of, it would provide a real life experience of what it's going to be once you're a manager, and it will keep bringing in these variables. For you to disturb you from your work, and then you had to deal with it. And the way you dealt with it by choosing options, those options were mapped with different competencies. It would either add or take away from, in a variable style, from each of these competencies. With that understanding, we would be able to create a personalized report for everyone who would take that simulation. And the simulations was built in an intelligent way, where the actions taken by a specific learner, the simulations will understand that, and based on the inputs, it will change the events and change the experience of the simulation from there on, basis the input from the learners. So what I want to do is give you a showdown of how that looked like. So guys, just walking you through. This is the plus.
Welcome to this leadership simulation. I will be your guide throughout the experience. You are the new manager of the company. You have a team to manage, stakeholders to delight, and goals to achieve. This training will simulate a 4-week period. You'll be measured on the application of appropriate leadership aligned to your competencies. I will now walk you through your dashboard where you will be working from. Please click on the navigation tour when you are ready. This is the dashboard you'll be working from. This holds key information you
Guys, sorry for this interruption. I want to call out some of the points which, as learning designers, we have to keep in mind. That, anything that you're building which is complex, and for sure, see, you're not going to feel it's complex because you're the one who's building it. But typically, once you show it to clients and do some user acceptance testing, you will realize that some of the things are not so intuitive, although they are from your view. But people in general who are just getting exposed to these ideas, they don't find it that intuitive. So it's always a great idea to create a navigation tour for your application or the simulation that you are building, because then it irons out so many of those initial support questions that people post on the website, or call up people for, hey, I don't know what to do now, or I don't understand how this is, what am I to do here. So things like that do get ironed out to a big degree. So we are in the simulation piece now. So this part now really explains how your dashboard is going to look like, and what are you going to
will need to assess during your simulation. You'll be measured on these key metrics. Volume depicts the quantum of work allotted to you. Completed will show the work your team has done, and accuracy will show the correctness of your delivered jobs. Time progress slider will show your progress across 4 weeks. Here is the team you will manage. You'll be able to see their motivation levels and results they are able to deliver at the job at hand. When you click on the Action tab, you can engage in their key activities with them. When you click to manage their time, you'll see the tasks for your team members. You can rationalize their tasks. Here are your stakeholders that you'll be reporting to. You'll be able to see how they are currently feeling towards you. Here is your task panel. From here, you'll be able to manage all tasks. That is, delegate tasks to your team members, prioritize your tasks, and push back when required. Be mindful that all activity you perform will have impact on others and the overall ecosystem. This is the events panel. Here you will see all events as they happen. Your simulation is starting. All the best.
So this is the first event. It says, hi Aman, first things first, let's meet with your team. So we say, okay. Now these are the team members that have been assigned to me. I click on each team member to get to know a little bit about them. So now the event panel says, hey, great job. You are well aware of the disk profiling that we use in the organization to better understand others. Now we will try to assign appropriate disk profile to each of the team members basis the brief that you've read about them. So I'm going to just randomly select certain profiles for each one of those. So after the disk profile has been assigned or identified, then I have to, the event panel says, hey, let's now select the leadership strategy for each of the team members. Now at this phase, we are using the situational leadership 2 model, in which basis the disk profile and basis the tenure of each person in the process, we are going to decide what kind of leadership strategy would each of these people need. So let's say Kunal, I can keep him in the coaching style of leadership. For Ravi, I can give him a supporting style. For Ajay, because he's a tenured team member, so I can keep him on delegating. And Rohini, who's still new, I'm going to keep her in directing style of leadership. Now, all the things that I'm doing here is going to have an impact on my week, because Rohini now, who I have assigned to the directing style of leadership, is likely to come back to me for my directions on certain tasks. Similarly, Kunal, who I have assigned coaching style of leadership, will expect certain coaching time from me. So basis all the inputs that I am giving here, my simulation will be impacted. So now it says, hey Aman, let's now get to meet your stakeholders and get to know them better. So here are my 2 stakeholders. He's Robert and he's Chris. So I have to be aware that both Robert and Chris are feeling differently towards me as of now, and I have to take care of that. So here is my first event of the day. This is Kunal, who's just come up to me and says that, hi, I'm not happy with how Ravi behaved recently in the last call. He overshadowed and took credit for the work that was not his. It happened in front of you and you were aware of the things that I had done, but you did not intervene. I have lost faith in this place. So, a great way to start the Monday morning. Here are some of the options that I can choose to take care of this situation. The first option is to diagnose root cause. Now, I can choose to do this. The moment I will go into this, what's going to happen is that I will need to spend some time in this diagnosis. I already see that my timing here left for me is 37 hours out of the 40 in this week. And if I choose to do this right away, then I will have 2 hours deducted from my available time. Or what I can do is I can tell Kunal to come back later. Now, Kunal here, as I can see that his motivation levels are already low. So if I ask Kunal to come back later, he might take offense to that because he's already at a low motivation level, and that might crop up as an event for me later where he could be looking at writing from the company. What I can also do is I can give constructive feedback to Ravi. Now, as per the situation, it seems that the manager is aware of what Ravi's doing was. If he chooses to do that, then what's going to happen is that although Ravi is in a good motivation level, so his motivation level will not get impacted. However, Kunal, who's on a low motivation level, his motivation level will improve. So what's really happening here is that as we have decided on these options, each of the option is going to impact all these variables between Ravi and Kunal, and that is going to have an impact on the simulation. Or I can give, or one of the other options is that I can give corrective feedback to Kunal. Now, Kunal is in a low motivation level. If I give corrective feedback to him with something like, Kunal, you're a grown-up guy, you can take care of your own things. Why don't you go and speak to Ravi and have this sorted out amongst yourself? So I can very well do that, but I have to now be aware that given that Kunal is not in a good motivation level, is that the option that I will choose? So for me personally, I would go with something like this where I give constructive feedback to Ravi. So as soon as I clicked on it, you saw that the mood level of Kunal, jumped up a little bit, but for Ravi, the mood level stayed constant. So as I take care of that, here is a mail in my inbox from Robert. Now, Robert, I know, is my stakeholder who's not feeling very well towards me. So here is what he says. Hi, Aman. It's been a bumper a bumper season for the client, and I need to take on some more work of 15 more hours. And my support is always there with you. So just reach out to me for anything. Now, what do? I have some options. First is that I take what Robert is giving me and I just add it to my task. The second is that I can push back and set expectations. Now, I know that I only have limited time and limited resources. So given that if my plate is full, then I might push back on some of the things that Robert is telling me to do, and I can set expectations. Or the third part which I can do is I can pacify and do partial work. So I can understand from Robert what it is that he wants me to do, and then pick up the pieces that are most important for him that needs to get done, and take care of those for now. So let me just select this one for now. So I see Robert's mood has increased just a little bit because I made that conversation with him. So here is another event, and this is the personal one. So, hi Aman, you promised to take your child for a piano recital at the amphitheater. What are you going to do? Now, this is actually simulating a real work-life day. So there are two options. One is that I can let my family know that I can't make it. If I choose to do that, what's going to happen is that it's going to impact my mood because I could not keep the word I gave to my own child and family, but it's going to let my time stay intact, available for work. Or I can, if I choose the other option, which is take your child, so my mood will, my motivation in life will increase a little bit, but I will lose on to 2 hours for completing this activity that I had earlier promised. So you can also manage your tasks. Please click on the manage task icon that you will see on the dashboard. Please click OK to reveal icon. So in this case, I will plan to take my child. So as soon as I clicked on it, you saw that my mood increased a little bit, and the time available for me to do the rest of the task has got decreased by 2 hours. Okay, here is another event, and this is Chris coming to me, and he says, hi Aman, there has been a mishap. The client has found gross irregularities in the way the process is being followed. We need to discuss this and identify the cause and put corrective action in place. Now, I have two options to take care of this. One is that I can diagnose it with my team first, get up to speed with what has happened in this case and where are we, what did we do, and things like that. Second is I can do a call with the stakeholder to understand issues. Now, this is a tricky one. What should be the right option for me? So, if I diagnose with my team, first, then it allows me to have information to feed to Chris when I have a discussion with him without going back to my team. So I would be more up to speed if I diagnose it first with my team. So let me just click on that. So I'm into a different situation now where the manager, which is the role that I am playing, and Kunal, one of the team members who was handling the issue, are now having a conversation basis the feedback received from the stakeholder. So it says what's been happening for Chris's deliveries. So Kunal says, sir, we've been doing our job. They changed the format last month and we made changes in our reports. And again, they changed the format last week. We sent the report as per the earlier format, as we could not have changed the format before sending out the report. That may have caused the problem. So what is it that I can do now? I have to take care of that. So here are some options available for me. I can give corrective feedback to Kunal. So the corrective feedback could be on the lines of, Kunal, we knew that the new format has come in. We should have ideally communicated with the client that it's not in the format that was last updated. It is still in the earlier format. Is that going to be okay with you? So I could do, an option like that, or I can write a mail explaining this to Chris, that what had exactly happened. And the third option is I can get the information and get into a call with Chris. So with this information now with me, I can now decide to get into a call. But here, as the situation demands, I'm going to give corrective feedback to Kunal for not being able to do that communication with the client. Okay, here is another event. Your peer is moving out of the company and a farewell party is being organized and they need volunteers to set up the bash. Would you spare some hours to help it set up? Now, this is a tricky one again. What is it that you do? Do you save on to your time and invest that in work, or do you want to do something about it? So here are some options. It's an email that's come and hit my inbox. So I can choose to ignore. I can send an email to the outgoing colleague wishing him all the best, or I could volunteer. So for now, given the situation and the my situation with stakeholders and things not going well, this is what I may choose to do. Now, all of this that I am doing is going to have an impact, because if I choose to just ignore this email and don't show up at the event, then my peers are going to look at me from that lens. And if I need any help from any of my peers, then that becomes difficult to get, because I am not seen by my action as a good comrade. So here we go. This is the end of week 1 skill report. So we've got the various skills or competencies listed here, and we've got the scores that each of my action has depicted or has added on to each of these competencies. So this gives me a very good dipstick as to how I am doing as a leader, and what more would I need to do or be careful of in my week 2.
But just got switched off. So this was a simulation that I showed you. Of course, I couldn't have run through the whole of it, but what I tried to show you was, so to say, we simulated the simple idea of creating or simulating our day in the life of. Use that principle to create a simulation, and not just play with one variable or stay focused on one discipline, but to create a multidisciplinary style environment in which things, when they come in, they don't ask if you're up for some leadership conversation and then they'll hit us. So things of any nature can come and hit us, and the learner is then required to manage that situation, managing all the variables, managing stakeholders, peers, your work and your teams. And then basis that management that person has done, gets a personalized skill report on how his competencies look like. So thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Aditi. I'm sure you liked it. It's the most funnest thing, the kind of things that we do, most fun thing for us to, develop and design. Um, okay, so I'll take on all the questions now. So we start off with Aditi's question, and she asked, okay, how did SME help building this simulation? Aditi, building such simulations is a very big undertaking. There are trained instructional designers and myself initially who have to be at the client site and identify SMEs, which typically are new managers, combination of those. And we had to just play out the day for so many people, so many times, and just created an inventory of all things that can happen. Um, it's a backbreaking task. That said, it's absolutely rewarding because when people get experience like that and they can use that for learning, then the feedback is tremendous. People love stuff like this. They come back and say, what, it looked like it was my day yesterday. So great anecdotal experiences we get. And for the leadership team that we worked for, the HR and training team, for them what's now available is a slicing and dicing as per competencies demonstrated by their mid management. So if they want to look at, okay, this week we're going to work on helping and supporting your team, so let's identify all people who have scored the maximum in that area. Identify those, make them your ambassadors, create mentors out of them, and let's identify people who are at the bottom of that skill. So there you go, you want to make a red pair out of it. So we talked about red pair, Chinese technology for creating peer networks. You can create a red pair out of it. You want to identify that this is the area or this is the competency that most of my team members are just failing or they're not able to score at all. So what is it that I can do to help people climb up a few steps in that specific skill and competency? So from a analytics input standpoint, the training team that we were working with, they got massive inputs to plan out the complete leadership journey basis the simulation. um, how long does it take, Aditi? It takes quite a while. I will share with you my own experience. The storyboard of what you just saw, and I think we created about almost 170 such events that would crop up. Uh, it took for us almost 3 months plus to put all of that together and storyboard it and get everyone's approval. That's the hardest part of everything. But it does take that kind of time, and like I said, it is an undertaking. Your organization has to be ready for it, but the rewards are fantastic. People love it. Buzz is still there in the organization for the simulation, and the simulation, like I said, is built in a way that you could play the simulation out as a pre to a certain program and then as a post, and you can keep doing the simulation many times over because the events, your own point of start, if all of that changes, then the simulation completely adapts itself. So it is rewarding, but like I said, it's high on budget, it's high on effort, and it just sucks up all the time with the SMEs. So it's uh, I mean, you can maximum do one simulation in a year, and then once you've gone through the experience, you'll say, okay, no more simulations for our team this year. But that said, it's a very, very rewarding experience at the end of it. It tests your instruction design capability to the fullest, and it also tests your ability to create UI UX in a way that people are able to find meaning in it. And when you have people stand up and say this is the best training they've attended in their life, then everything that you've gone through becomes commentary. It doesn't hurt anymore. uh, so I think that's my 2 cents on that. Gautam, amazing, great. Thank you, Gautam. I'm glad you liked it. Kunal is saying, great sim, Aman. What kind of effort would developing this kind of interactive learning involve? So, like I'm saying, Kunal, it requires a lot of a lot of involvement from the instruction design team. You need a person of a learning strategist caliber to really drive it. So instructional designers who are pure instructional designers, who have not done learning strategy, they will fall short of skills to put all of this together. So you definitely need a learning strategist, you need an instructional designer, you need a solid number of SMEs who will give you countless hours, And like I was mentioning a few sessions back, that if your project plan is, is populated like crazy, and if it's populated till the end, only then you should attempt something like this, because it does take time, and it does take money, and does take all those things which otherwise can be quickly built. It's not rapid authoring. You have to really do to and fro on these ideas quite a bit with the management, and then they will approve it. Sorry about that. All right, Aditi. So you find this interesting, fantastic. Our clients too. So, okay, Gautam. So you're saying a couple of questions. How do we put a value to the impact of how this? Okay, how do we put a value to the impact of the decision? How do you design levels for this game? How do you space out sustenance plan for this company? And um, how many questions variable is there a thumb rule? Gautam, the thing with simulation is there is no thumb rule, man. You just have to dive in and just look at the territory once you are deep dived in. I really have no thumb rules there. You just have to dive in, and the content, as you keep analyzing the content then dictates, and the program objective then dictates what you need to do with it. So, knowing upfront what's going to happen once I deep dive in, I don't have that information. Simulations are such a beast that it's very difficult to put up a proposal and say that this is what's going to happen and that's what's going to happen. Of course, you could do this to some degree, but that is not the tactical degree. It's still few feet above sea level. So that said, so let me just break this question down. How do we put value on the impact of decision? It is driven by the stakeholders, the SMEs, the management. So as you put forward your ideas that, hey, this is how we can rate it, this is how we can grade people's choices, then you get feedback and you make corrective action. That's how it works as an iterative process. How do you design levels for this game? Very simple, Gautam. The thumb rule really led there is that if you want to design levels, then the next level should have more complexity than the earlier one. And how do you do that? You increase the number of variables and you increase the complexity of things coming for people. And as actually the simulation itself has 4 levels, so each week is a level. And in the next week you will realize that, hey, one of your resources has just been called out for a training program which is mandatory to attend by all people. And guess what? You're one resource less. You still have to manage all the work. So that's another level, because your variables are getting constrained. In the third one, there is even more drama and complexity that has to be added to make this look like, oh my god, now what do I do? And it gets so stressful that people sit up on the chair even while playing out, and they start moving their feet, and all those crazy things happen. We've seen it. People just love that experience of being out there and really trying to solve a problem and save this guy you're playing the role of, from getting fired. So how many questions and variables? I would say just work with contrast. If your level 1 has got 5 variables, your level 2 should have 7. So just incremental increase on those ideas. Aditi, you're saying, since it is inarticulate, how much programming was used, or was it done through layers? Because it's a combination. Aditi, to be frank, I would say that we did not use any programming outside of what Articulate already offers. This simulation was completely developed in Articulate Storyline 3. And except for a few pieces where custom coding was required, which is right at the end when we are doing scores and things like that, only then it is required to post or pull scores from another application. Otherwise, it was completely built without custom coding. Kunal, your question is, thanks, Aman. Did you use any standard authoring tool, or did you use a custom build entirely? So, Kunal, this specific simulation, it allowed us to, do what we wanted to without going into Unity. So we did that. We worked in Articulate Storyline. And we were under tremendous pressure to have something, delivered quickly. So with all that in mind, we used Articulate Storyline. Of course, if there were things that we wanted to do beyond what was possible, we would have gone to Unity. So Kunal, you're saying, sorry, please ignore my question, as correctly observed by the, oh my God. So sorry about that. Okay, Gautam, fantastic, Aman. This is such a robust and foolproof design. Looking back at the work, how do you think you could have done anything better there? Gautam, that's the sad part of being a a learning designer. You're always critiquing your own work, and you are constantly coming up with what else I could have done it. I could have done better. So of course, those ideas still linger on, and though things went off well, but of course, if I had to do it again, I would make certain changes, and very very tactile feedback I have for myself. So I will put that in place. One thing that I think I can share with you, which could be of benefit, is that it pays a lot to create a prototype very early in the stage, which we did in this case, and that's why we were able to get through with all the approvals and things like that. That's if we used one strategy that nailed it for us, I would say prototyping. If you prototype very early, just by understanding a customer's requirement and use all your intelligence and bringing all those pieces out in your prototype, then clients build trust in you. They see that they're not working with amateur. They see that here is somebody who can help you. So that said, that really helps, and I don't think that this skill is, or this piece is, only limited for consultants. Even as internal resource, one could go out and prototype. So whatever you want to sell, just prototype, show it to people, get their feedback, get your prototype to a place where most people who would see it would like it. So and it works in great in simulation, because in simulations we have to completely go via the SAM philosophy of incremental iterations. There is no way that you will do the storyboard without even prototyping. It doesn't happen in simulations. You will have to prototype right up front, and the earlier you prototype, better you are in that project, is my view on that. Okay, so Gautam, you're saying for budding simulation enthusiasts, what is a good way to get started? Any mentoring or part-time work for beginners? Gautam, you could come and work with our studio. I'll be happy to, have you as a part of my team, and you could work part-time. So we'll take this offline. If you're interested, just ping me. But on the serious side, Gautam, there isn't formal education program for learning designers to pick up simulations. There isn't. Not that I know of, let me put it that way. But it's a good idea, for our next summit. I think it'd be a good idea to get together with all the simulation builders and do some fantastic sessions around work that they're doing, and what are their learnings from that. So I take that as a feedback, and we'll see what we can do around it. But I'm not aware that any structured program exists, especially here in India, where you could get hands-on training. I think the way to do learning design is to, and if you're really interested, is to work with somebody who has the right skills, and then work as an apprentice, and give it what it takes till you develop the skill on your own. And thanks to this Learning Design Summit, guys, and I'm sharing this with everyone. So many people have gotten in touch and said that, hey, they want to learn this and that. And I understand that there isn't very good structured programs out there which are done by actual practitioners. So, of course, we've got people who sell programs, and they're selling programs on instruction design and technology-enabled learning. But we know what all that is. So the companies who are bringing those programs are not run by learning designers. The curriculum is not made by learning designers. It's made by people who are into academics. So what it means for me is that it's a no-go. I would say that find somebody who you think can help you, and even if it takes for you to work as an apprentice, then why not? If this is what your interest is. Alrighty, Gautam, feel free to get in touch with me. Praveena, I'll take up your question. Okay. How did you get the SME stakeholders on board that a simulation would work for them, especially when SME availability is such a challenge? Very good question, Praveena. Very, very good question. I will tell you, see and you've been in those situations. So you are in a room full of people, and all these people are now judging you with what you have got to say. Okay. And much of what I did in this wasn't my own doing, in the sense I did not go in with the idea of simulation. But when I heard the management, when I heard that here are these people who have a chip on their shoulder, as told to me by the management, and they think they know it all, but they're making a mess of it, and we want to give them an experience which jolts them into reality, and just crushes their their own their own super avatar in their imagination. So how do we do that? And these are the guys who are completely engrossed the whole day, and they are operations managers and they don't have time. And how do we get them to train and do it in a way where they go crazy about this training? So with all that heard, we said, okay, simulation could be an idea which we can propose to you. So your second part of your question was that a simulation would work for them. Actually, we did not have too much objections with the idea of simulation. They actually liked the idea upfront, and they felt that, okay, this is a good relief over doing a classroom style facilitation program, or a traditional style learning. Actually, it sold by itself, frankly. So you didn't have to push that case there. Kunal, you're asking. You could check this out on Coursera, Serious Gaming. Absolutely. So, yes, you could check all of that out. And I myself have done a few courses there. And here is what I have to say about that. That most of these courses, I have nothing against them, Kunal, at all. They're great courses. You can get to know a lot of information and a lot of knowledge gathering. But the only problem I have is that most of these courses are not done by practitioners. They are done by academics. So that's my only issue. And there is especially when it comes to technology enabled training, a person who practices will be able to stay in touch with the reality. A person who's academic completely and not doing consulting or real-time project deliveries can get lost in the romance that comes with new concepts. So that's my only thing. But that said, some of these courses on Coursera, edX, you can get to see, at least in these courses, you will get to see the theoretical part of things can get sorted out. You will get to see a lot of ideas, and that's the whole point. I mean, I believe that if you if you get the education in terms of what the concept is and what it can do and what are some do's and don'ts and things like that, and get to see ideas, that's a very good starting point. All we are doing in this webinar is I'm sharing with you my perspective, my examples, and with the whole intention that, hey, you're going to get ideas basis this, and you can go out and create your own. So I would say, if you're committed, go ahead, and these courses are for free. It doesn't hurt to pick any of these up. Absolutely. Kunal, when I said that structured programs are not there, I meant more like really serious programs where you could like go do a program in something. So of course, online there are courses like these available, and one should definitely make use of those as much as possible. Okay, Gautam, you're saying thanks a lot, Aman. Thanks, Kunal. We'll check it out. Fantastic, Kunal. It's a good introduction. Fantastic. So guys, that's where we are. Now I'm going to start off with something else. So we talked about a day in the life of, that was one simulation, and we're going to go into the next one. All right. So, we talked about creating business simulation. We just looked at a leadership simulation a while back, and now we're going to talk about business simulation. So I'm going to be showing you some of my work in this area. So we worked with one of the big fours, and how a consulting firm works, which is that partners, once you become a partner to a consulting firm, then you become responsible for managing the profitability of that practice that you're leading. And for the client that we worked for, they were having issues where partners were not able to profitably manage their practice arms or grow their practice arms at the levels that was expected of them. Again, it requires for a partner in a consulting firm to have mastered multiple disciplines for a person to become a partner. But of course, that didn't look like the case in this specific situation, and there were people who were new partners and people who weren't very doing well in their practice arms and things like that. So what did we do? We created a business simulation. We based it on a book called How to Run a Service Firm, to build what we wanted to give them an experience of. And what we really did was we took the book and we understood what it said, and we actually got similar books as well, and we understood what are the themes that are being covered, and we discussed those themes with the client, and the client was able to personalize or contextualize those themes basis how things are done in their organization. So with every theme that we picked up, we kind of customized the content. as per the organization culture, as per the practices in the organization, and things like that. So I'm just going to be showing you how that looks like. And this specific piece that I'm sharing with you is not completely a simulation. It is a mix of learning and simulation. So how we've created this is that we've talked about a concept. By the way, this client shared with us that they gave this book away to every partner, at a recent gala event and things like that, and nobody read it. And they said they will do a teach back, and one person will take up a topic, and there just wasn't any interest for any of that. So it just fell through the cracks. So, of course, the self-directed learning in this piece, in this initiative of the organization, fell flat. So they wanted to create a structured program. And it is critical for them that their people, their partners, understand these different themes in its complete nuancical glory, and then be able to apply it to make their practice arms more profitable. So I'm just going to jump into that. Just give me a second. There are three types of projects. In the first type, called the brains, the client's problem is at the forefront of the professional or technical knowledge, or at least is of extreme complexity. The key elements of this type of professional service are creativity, innovation, and the pioneering of new approaches, concepts, or techniques. In essence, their appeal to their market is hire us because we are smart. The gray hair projects. While they require highly customized output in meeting the client's need, it involves a lesser degree of innovation and creativity in the actual performance of the work than the brain projects. The general nature of the problem to be addressed is not unfamiliar, and the activities necessary to complete the project may be similar to those performed on other projects. In effect, they are saying, hire us because we have been through this before and we have practice at solving this type of a problem. The third type of project is the procedure project. It usually involves well recognized and familiar type of a problem. While there is still a need to customize to some degree, the steps necessary to accomplish this are somewhat programmatic. The client may have the ability and resource to perform the work itself, but turns to the professional firm because the firm can perform the service more effectively. Let's now estimate the kind of workforce requirement for each of the three types of projects. The graphs that you see here, on the x-axis, it depicts the quantum of resource required to complete the project. And on the y-axis, it depicts the seniority of resource that will be required to complete the project. Please drag and drop the right workforce requirement graph to the right type of the project. So here I'm required to drag and drop the resource utilization to each of these different type of projects. So I know that brain project now is something which is innovative and which requires astute skills in business and innovation, and it requires higher degree of seniority for the resource, and maybe the number of people required is not that much. So I'm going to take this and drag it up here. So great. Okay, the second type of project is the gray hair project, and we know that these are kind of projects which requires mid management, and it requires good number of resources as well. So I will bring it here. And the third type of project is the procedure type of project where more number of people at the lower cadre of management are required to deliver. So I bring them here. Let's now play a small game. You are the leader of the practice arm with a leverage ratio of 2, which is you have double the number of associates as the partners. Your available time every quarter is 4 units of partner time and 8 units of associate time. The billing rate for the partner is 3 times the billing rate of associate. 1 unit of partner time can be converted to 2 units of associate time for work completion when needed. Partner can fill in for associate time, but associate cannot fill in for partner time as he does not have the skill set required to perform the partner level tasks. This short simulation will simulate 2 quarters. Your current quarter will be highlighted as shown. Here you will see the time available to you to work on projects. Projects availability is repetitive and predictable in your market. And here you will see the revenue you have generated currently. In this area, you will see the projects. You can hover your mouse over the projects to see more information about them. You can choose the project that you want to work on by clicking on this button. All right, so I'm in my quarter 1 right now. I've got 3 projects called P1, G1, and B1, and I have to select which of these projects I want to choose for my firm. So I see that the P1 project, let me just hover my mouse, and it says this is a project for telecom for talent assessment, and it's a procedure style project. Which requires 1 unit of partner time and 14 units of associate time. The second is the gray hair style project, which requires 3 unit of partner time and 6 unit of associate time. And then I've got a brain type project, which requires 4 unit of partner time and 1 unit of associate time. So let's say I'm a new partner and I want to create a bang with my practice arm. So I choose the brain project because this will get me the highest visibility and it will establish our competence as consultants in the market. So let me just click on that. So what's happened is that my partner time utilization has is very good because I've got no partner time left. But my associate 7 units of my associate time has not been utilized, and I have made 13 times X revenue. So I say okay. Okay, so it seems that because I still have some associate level resource available with me, I can go out to the market and select some more projects. So here are 2 more projects that I have access to now, which I can bid and decide to do with my resources. So one is the P2 style project, which is again a procedure style project. Now this project requires 3 unit of associate time. I have 7, so I can pitch for that, but it requires 1 unit of partner time and I am left with no partner time, so I can't take this project on. Then we have B2 style project, which is a brain style project, which requires 2 unit of partner time and 2 unit of associate time. So I'm left with no partner time, so I can't really do anything here. So basically, I do have associate time left with me, but I still cannot use up to complete any other project because of my earlier selection. So if I just click on that, so it's telling me that you don't have enough resources to take up this project. So I say okay. So now I'm going into quarter 2. So this is what it looks like. In the quarter 2, I start with 4 units of partner time and 8 units of associate time. And I have got 3 projects this quarter that I can pitch for and do. So first is the procedure style project. So let me just hover over it. So it's a project for telecom, again for talent assessment, requires 1 unit of partner time and 14 units of associate time. I really can't do it because I do not have that amount of associate time left with me. So I will look at another project, which is a G3 or a gray hair style project, and it requires 2 unit of partner time and 4 units of associate time. So it looks like that from a time availability, it is a project I can go for. And similarly, I have another brain style project available to me. Now,
I know from my past experience that it's not a good idea to go for brain projects right away, because though it utilizes your partner time well, but your associate time is still going to get left out unutilized. But I can still make my choice, and let's say this time I go in for the gray hair type project. So moment I click on that, I see that now I have achieved 15x the revenue, and my 1 unit of partner time is left and 2 unit of associate time is left. So I say okay. So given that I have some resources left, I can pitch for more projects. So here are two more projects available to me. One is a procedure style project in which 3 unit of associate time is required. I can't go in for that. And 1 unit of partner time is required, which I do have, but I don't have enough partner time left to be converted into associate time. And in the second option, I have a brain project which requires 2 unit of partner time. I don't have that, so I have to let this go as well. So I could just click on any of these to just check if I could attempt it, but it looks like it's not going to let me attempt it. So here you go. What it seems like has happened is that I have built 7 units of my partner time. In the best case billing, I could have achieved 9. So I missed on to 2 units here. And I have achieved billing of only 7 units of associate time. In the best case scenario, I could have gotten that to 17. And from a utilization standpoint, I have been able to utilize only 87.5% of my partner time, and 43.75% of my associate time. Whereas in the best case scenario, I could have achieved 100% utilization of my partner time and 93% utilization of my associate time. And the total revenue I generated for the firm was 28x, and the best case scenario could have been 44x. So, what this makes me think is that the way I have selected projects was not correct and could have been optimized more. So, basis this learning and the experience of having gone through selecting the type of projects at different times of the quarter, I can now replay this game. Welcome back. How did you like that simulation? There are a few things I wanted to point out. Um, One was that as part of development, what we did was that we one thing that came to us was that we wanted to create these learning modules, not very long, each module not to extend 15 minutes. So the way we created these modules was that for each theme that we selected, we created, so to say, 15-minute module which had its top concepts explained and then applied a testing of that, and then a simulation of actual application of, not in a question answer format but in a holistic business like format. So that was the format we followed for creating these modules. Two things that I want to point out for learning designers was the first of those was that in the first piece where you saw that we explained 3 types of projects, which is the brain project, the gray hair project, and the procedure project. We did not go on to explain how the distribution of resources happen in each. We let that for the learner to figure out for himself. This is a technique that we use very often in our studio. And typically all learning designers who've been trained old school like myself, they would think that the only place for assessment is either if you're doing a formative assessment, which is an assessment after a few slides, and say that, okay, we've come till slide number so and so, let's do a quick check of our knowledge and see if we can recall what we learned. And the second type of course, is the summative assessment. So after you've gone through a course, you go through a question and answer session or a quiz, and you get across that. Now, I believe that learning designers of the future will not use assessments in its lame format that we have used traditionally. What we do in our studio is that we prefer to use assessment as a tool for content delivery. So I will say that again. We use assessment as a tool for content delivery. We've seen this. It works so much better
than going the formative and summative assessment way. And what can happen is that when you are committed to use assessment as a tool for content delivery, it is so much fun to explain concepts, only one fourth or three fourth or only half, and then expect people to figure out the rest, or at least the part in which it is applied, which is derivable from a common sense point of view if somebody is really paying attention and going through things. So it is doable, and people love it, and they're constantly engaged on the screen. So enough on that. So guys, let me know what you thought about that simulation. There were few pieces which are very, very nuancical, which we wanted people to get, which is that in a consulting style business, and especially the ones that big four are in, typically what happens is that if you pick up a gray hair project and if you do it a few times, then you develop competence on that. And the next time you are doing a project that you have done a flavor of a little earlier, it will not take you that kind of time that it took the first time. So that's the beauty about gray hair project that we wanted people to capture. And if it was just told to them, they would not get the gravity of it. So only after they have played the simulation once and they figured out that their selection was not the best, they could have achieved more. And once they replay and they go back, they look at the place where it says that, if you are signing up for a gray hairstyle project, then the next time a similar project comes your way, you will be better off and will be able to do that project in a comparatively lesser time, because by now you would have figured out processes, you would have figured out workflows and things like that. So guys, that's how one could build a business simulation. The whole idea of or any simulation is, remember, is it's reality in a sandbox. So if you are creating a simulation, it should really depict reality in its most ruthless forms, as people do face on ground. And it should talk about the consequences, and we have to make consequence hard hitting, so that we are able to drive our point, and people don't make the same mistake again, or don't choose to think about something absolutely critical when they need to be thinking about that. So it's a great way to get information across. And another thing about simulation is that people can fall off to sleep during a training program. In a simulation, every few minutes there is an interaction required, so the content won't move forward till you interact with the content. So with all these great things about simulation, they work very well for creating learning experiences for senior leaders. All right. So there is a question, but I don't have the name, but that's okay. So do you always make your learners replay the simulation, or do you sometimes show the ideal option to the learners after they have made the choice? If given me a choice, and if I could create a thumb rule and generalize it, I would say that I would want people to replay the simulation in all cases. If you showed them what the ideal option is, trust me, it's in my map of the world, it's not as effective till as if one is to get to it, one can get to it himself or herself. So that's my view on that. I could be wrong, and it's just the way I'm caught up in thinking, but I just feel it works better. Gautam, thank you. You're saying great one. Kunal, you're saying would have really got the participants thinking. Great work. Thank you so much, Kunal. Yes, it did get them thinking. Kunal, you will be surprised, and I get surprised all the time. When he's very, very senior people, in situations like these, they make a mess of themselves in terms of their application, and then they feel really, really jolted into reality, and they start to take things more seriously. And we all have traps, just the way we in the learning design community, we have certain traps, the traps of the magpie syndrome and things like that. So even in consulting business, people have traps, and those traps are that, hey, let's get the project which has the highest visibility, and we can put our flag there and just declare to the world that we have arrived and we are the best consultants. So people do get caught up in these in these romances. And as a business, if you're running a business, you want people to keep thinking straight, because thinking straight and managing all your resources and identifying which projects to get is a function of constantly thinking about the business, not about it's not a function of how well do you want to be known. So, Kunal, yes, it got people thinking. We got massive feedback, and we were able to identify on, on a theme scale. There were about, I think, 13 themes. And the good thing about projects like these is that you can keep building onto themes, and there is always something new that you can give to your people. And it's a 15-minute exercise. At the end of it, there is a leaderboard, so people see how they have done vis-a-vis everyone else. If you want this to be there in this case, the client said we do not want the leaderboard. We want to be a self-driven exercise. But in some cases, you can have the leaderboard, and every 15-minute experience takes you to the leaderboard. You know where you stand, and it hits you hard like no other training will. And you want to be ready for the next one, so you're thinking that much more. You don't want to look bad in front of all your colleagues. So we just leverage all these psychological facts to make them pay attention to our learnings. Okay. Kunal, you got another one. You say, if you wanted this SIM to be available on mobile, would Articulate have been able to achieve it? I would say yes, Kunal. Articulate has got fantastic capability by itself. The one that you saw was not optimized for mobile. It was optimized for laptop, because that's how we wanted our people to play it. But if you create something on Articulate Storyline, it can very well play on the mobile itself. And I would say that earlier they had a Articulate player which had to be installed. Not anymore. I think they are working with HTML5, and you can pretty much do anything. The only thing about creating simulations in mobile is that your real estate of the screen is really small, and there is only so much that you can do. So from a UI UX perspective, I think one really needs to be adept in creating experiences that people don't feel lost in, and it becomes a fun experience and not such a lengthier one. So it is doable. Articulate Storyline 3 is fantastic. Of course, you can't do all of this with Rise, but you can do this with Articulate Storyline 3, and it works very well on mobile itself. But of course, like I said, that your screen can't have so many elements like we saw. So it's not scaling down of a screen version that we can create a mobile version. We'll have to think differently or how we want to create something optimized for mobile phones. So that's that, guys. We are actually right at the end, and I wanted to show you some more of our work. So let's look at something else. Okay, so I'm just going to rush through some of the other. Okay, so there's a question. All right, sorry. Yeah, Kunal, Storyline is our tool of choice. It is by far, a very, very good tool. And if I would say, if learning designers of tomorrow or today, if they want to pick up one tool and really upskill themselves, it is Articulate Storyline 3 without doubt, because you can prototype so much. You can, take your ideas to the client, give it fame, form, and shape, and you're not dependent on a third person. And really, I've had some comments from people who've written to me saying that, Aman, can we do a course on Articulate skills for learning designers who are not actually developers? So somebody who does instruction design, how much of Articulate should they know, and how do you build these prototypes and things like that? So, I would say that go ahead, learn this Articulate Storyline software. It's very easy to use. It doesn't have custom coding. I mean, it does have custom coding, but you can still get around most of the stuff by just dragging and dropping, and, creating rules by drag and drop formulas which are already in place there. Fantastic. So let's go ahead on the next simulation. This is on a leadership process. Now, the brief that we had was that the client wanted standardization of leadership experience aligned to the company culture and subscribed leadership processes. Now, what was happening was that, we know the most difficult time in a corporate is the time of appraisals. People don't feel appreciated at the time of appraisals, and leaders, because they're holding so many of these appraisal, conversations, they tend to step over other people, and they tend to not manage emotions of the person who is talking to them. And people start attriting, they start moving out of the organization. A lot of that happens, but that said, what this specific company wanted was to create a standardization of leadership process. Now, by standardization, it doesn't mean robotic following of step 1, step 2, but it is to say that everyone has their own style, and they are more than welcome to leverage their own natural style. However, there are some things that this specific company did not want to negotiate on, which are that everyone has to be respected, cared for, and things like that. And the way we communicate also has to be standardized. no matter which tone. I mean, no matter what is your personal natural style, you must adhere to certain areas of leadership processes and follow, what the company subscribes to. Sorry about that. So in the solution, what we did was we simulated the real life leadership conversation sessions based on brief using interactive storytelling. So this is a simulation in which we used interactive storytelling, and we created open ended branch story. So you know what that is. So typically the way we create scenarios is that every question will have four options, and if you choose the wrong option, then you get a feedback, and then either you lose score, and you basically have to select the right question to move forward. Now in this open-ended branch story style simulation, what we did was there were no right or wrong questions. There were just ways in which you would handle that situation. Each situation would again get into a further branching basis that input given, and basically it was an open-ended maze that you have to navigate yourself through, and what would matter is how you're taking your decisions. And just the way we did in the first simulation that I showed you, that all options, all decisions that were presented to people were aligned to either certain competencies or certain other things that people are required to learn. And in the end, we are able to create so to say, an analytical board where we can say that this person as a leader displayed so much score in a specific competency. Guys, this is pure gold when it comes to our ability to quantify people's behavior. And we've been hearing about this all throughout the Learning Design Summit. How do we quantify behavior and things like that. Simulations, they give us the tool to make this as black and white as possible. So I would say that don't get caught up with the myth that behaviors can't be quantified. Yes, they can be quantified, maybe not to a tactile degree, but yes, to a good degree where it's reflective of what the person is likely to behave in similar situations. Okay, so what we did was we mapped different responses to competencies and provided a diagnostic of their competency application. What was the impact? Again, we created a personalized leadership profile for all leaders that can be used for further development opportunities. And it was a big jump over the client's existing strategy, which was to use case study. Now, interesting discussion, guys. I want to share with you. Once we were called in and they said that, hey, we are currently doing a case study for our leadership development. So I said, what is the case study? So the case study was that everyone gets around and everyone's given a paper. On that paper is the case study, and then they are required to debate and have a group conversation on what somebody could have done. Now and I spoke to them about herd mentality and what it takes for us to pretend in a certain way, and typically in a way that we are not naturally in a group like situation. So we guys are all aware of it, that you can't debate leadership, because if it comes to talking, that all of us are great at talking and we can talk all great things, but when it comes to doing, people tend to fall short, or they tend to act in ways other than what they had prescribed. So when it comes to leadership, it is important to put people in the situation, because only when the stress mounts up and people know that they are being graded, they are being watched, and they have to act in a certain way, after pretending for first few options, the real you takes over, and then it will make you do the way that you would in a similar situation. So that's the good thing about simulation, that you can leverage. So it will it's a place, unlike in psychometrics, where or certain other type of personality quizzes where you could fake who you are. Simulation does give you a more stressful opportunity to put people in stressful situations where they forget that they are pretending, and when the clock is ticking and you're being watched, you tend to behave in the way that's most natural to you, and that's a good thing that we wanted to capture in the simulation. So guys, let me know if it is going good, if you're liking what you're seeing, or if you'd like me to wrap up or talk about something else. I'll be happy to do that, but for now, let me just play this piece of the simulation.
Welcome to the case study on internal job posting. You are the manager Aaron, and here is your team member James, who is applying for an IJP. Please input your name and click begin to start.
I love this company for many reasons. the brand, its culture, the people, the value system, and importantly the career development opportunity alongside the associated perks. I have completed 3.5 years in my current role and have been contemplating what comes next. Every year, I have been rated E and received a decent compensation hike in the annual review. I share a friendly relationship with my manager. I am the most tenured person in my team of 3 people. The Mail Digest comes every Thursday, which lists possible internal job postings, IJP. Previously I had not opened these emails, but 45 days back, I opened the list and saw a role in training which interested me. So, I applied. My goal is simple. I want to stay in this company, and so I went through the IJP process. As bad luck would have it, last week, I was informed that I did not make the cut for the role. I am disheartened.
You're his manager, who has just found out from a colleague about him applying for an IJP. This has really surprised and infuriated you.
What? James has applied for an IJP and I'm hearing about this from others and not James himself? That's not something a decent employee would do. If he wanted to move out of my team, he should have at least had a discussion with me first.
What are you going to do?
Call him right now, speak with him and find out what's happening. Let me schedule a dedicated time to discuss the issue with him. Speak to another team member close to James to get insights.
Choose your response.
You are currently in an emotionally charged state. The conversation could get out of hand, and emotions may get the better of you. It's always better to be curious and calm before holding a discussion. Check your mood elevator. Being in a low mood may not empower you to reach a positive outcome. Can you identify which moods you and James are in? Can you identify the lens which is influencing your thinking? You are somewhere between irritated and bothered to angry and hostile, and the employee is probably between worried and anxious to defensive and insecure. That's not a positive mood at either end, and it's not likely to give you a good outcome. Great. You've realized that you are in an emotionally charged state. It's always better to get calm before holding a discussion. Mood Elevator is a good tool to assess your current mood. Lower moods are not conducive to producing positive outcomes. Can you identify
All right. So sorry about that. What I wanted to show you was, and this specific simulation that I was just playing out for you, I realize is a little longer, and we won't be able to, play out the whole thing. So what we really did here that I want to talk about is that we created an open branched storytelling method, an interactive storytelling method, in which we, created this whole scenarios and stories, and provided people options that they could choose to deal with the situation. If they clicked on an option, it did not say right or wrong. However, it did tell them what is this specific strategy that you are taking. Is it applicable to some of the leadership language that you are already aware of? If not, then it would say that, and it'll allow people to go with their choices. And the choices did not hit a wall in the sense that this is the wrong choice, go back. So it allowed them to move into that conversation with that choice already now part of reality. So it's a new style of content delivery, a little step up on the typical scenario based learnings that we create. The challenge really here was to be able to create a maze of various actions and situations where they were so to say, very few dead ends, and you could always find your way back and still get to the output that you wanted. And it was filled out with it's like having a coach on the side, where somebody would pop up and give you the explanation of how you're doing to move forward. So let me know, guys, how did you like that? We are already at 12 minutes over our scheduled time. So of course, I have a few more that I want to share with you. In the meantime, guys, feel free to let me know in the chat area if this is making sense. I can continue to if we are not all of us getting late, I can continue to show them as well, but don't want to not cover something and be caught up in one specific piece is what my intention is right now. So we looked at these leadership processes style simulation. The only thing innovative we've done here is created a open-ended branch story, okay, and used interactive storytelling. Interactive storytelling is is something that our millennials and the new generation really likes these days. It takes for us to create, of course. All right. So here is a good one. Can you show the storyline from the story view of that simulation? Yes, I could show that, but I don't have it on my laptop right now. But to really, I understand what you're saying. You want to see how complex is the branching and one thing leading to another. So, I would say that it does get complex, and one things lead to one another. So what you will end up getting is a spider web on the mind map of what storyline offers. And this mind map is the connections going from everywhere to everywhere, so that kind of relationship is built across various scenes and scenarios. That said, it's not complete madness. As you keep going down a specific rabbit hole, in terms of what options people are choosing, there will be very little branching that a wrong, or so to say, not so aligned behavior will lead you to go. So initially there will be a web, and a lot of inter things joining into each other. But as you go into each of those scenarios, your options will get limited, and there is so much of damage control you will be able to do if you've chosen chosen a wrong decision and gone with it for a few scenarios. So that said, that's how it looked like. Gautam, you're saying absolutely mind-blowing stuff. Aman can't keep pace with the amount of intricacy involved. Gautam, of course, these things haven't happened overnight, and it's not as mind-boggling, boggling and complex as it seems. I would say, if this is the line that you want to develop in, and if you keep at it, there is nothing that can stop you from doing even more crazier stuff than you saw. Really takes nothing. All we do is listen to customers and try to do something which we think can solve their problem. So time and again, I'm constantly coming back to the trap that all of us learning designers get caught up in, which is good looking graphics and good looking slides and great animations. There is a world beyond that. And if you are a learning designer still caught up with all this, then the road is very short for you. But if you know now that design by itself beyond the aesthetic also can survive, and will survive because of what it does, you will push yourself. There is no two ways around it. Yes, Gautam, cognitive overload is definitely happening. So I get the message from you. I'm going to, just take your opinions on. I've got few more things that I thought I will bring this up, but we will keep it for another day. But let me know how you felt seeing what you did till now. And Aditi, yes, that's a good comment for Gautam. So guys, let me know in the chat area if you would like me to go on, and I could, I have all the time in the world, I could go on. Or if you think this is good enough and we could just have some discussion around it. So throw me your questions. I'm no expert at it. Only thing I've done is had some experience over the last few years trying to develop this and excite my own customers and clients with stuff that we can do. And I believe as learning designers, we need to have a repertoire of so many things that we are aware and we can do for our clients. So I'll move on to next one. I think everyone's is in a good place with their hands in either pockets or things like that, which is great. Okay, so here is another one that I want to show you, which is on digital learning. And so here is the case study, guys. What happened was that we worked with a client who was alrighty. So great. So, here we are, and we can look at some more stuff. So, what's happening here is that, this specific organization we worked for, they were an analytical company, and they used to work in the software called SAS. And SAS is, SAS and R, we know, are programming languages or applications in which you can do analytic stuff. Now, in this case, what happened was that the client felt that teaching somebody how to use or how to program in a specific language is beyond what digital learning can deliver. And just like all of you guys, I love challenges myself, and I felt that, okay, if this is a clear given that we can't do this, then we at least should put together something like a prototype and show it to them. So what we did was that the client kept telling us that the okay, let me tell you the story. The story goes like this: that this specific client was getting people or trainers from the SAS Institute in USA to come down here in India and train their people on this application. Of course, he was given the 5-star treatment, and he held something like a 10-day boot camp on this programming language. And this was turning out to be quite a costly affair. Because of the reasons I just told you. And the second step they took towards mitigating that cost was that they got their own people who by now were well trained to do these boot camps for the newer joinees. Uh, the superstars of the floor were now not anymore on the floor. They were now in training room, delivering stuff, teaching new guys. So the company now felt that although their costs are mitigated, but their best resources are not available to do the work. They are out in the training room. So how do we get around that? So what we did was that we understood that client is very, very focused on the idea that it takes a lot of personal coaching for a person to really grasp these concepts. And you had to and digital learning, any digital learning solution will just be a next to continue, and it will lead us nowhere. All right. So what we did here was that we actually simulated a coaching experience. I'm bringing this into this webinar of simulation for the reason that, uh, like I said, not everything simulation has to look and feel like a serious game, which is a 3D or virtual reality or any of those things. But that said, uh, we can simulate anything. And here what we did was we simulated a coaching experience. So how does a coaching experience look like? Well, coaching experience to me, my understanding is that, let's say you're going for a maths tutor, and there is a maths tutor who's teaching you basic arithmetic. And what the maths tutor would do is say, okay, 2 plus 2, and then write for himself the answer is 4. And he will check with you if you've understood the concept by putting another equation. It could be 2 plus 3, and then write the equal to sign and give the pen to your hand and say, okay, write down what the answer will be. And then, of course, it's your opportunity to make mistakes and to, if you've got the concept, you will say 5. If you've not got the concept, you'll say I think it's still 4. So, things like that. And basis what you say, the coach or the tutor would then explain to you where you're wrong, or encourage you if you're right, and then also handhold you, show you what the right answer is, and then move forward. So with this metaphor in mind, what we did was we actually sat through that coaching experience that the new trainers were giving to their new joinees. And we just captured that simulated we captured that coaching experience, and we simulated it digitally. It was so much fun to do that. And beyond fun, what we were able to help them achieve was that the 10-day boot camp that they were rolling out got compressed into 3.5 hours of actual programming content, which was a big surprise for everyone because they felt, how can you compress a 10-day program into 3.5 hours? But guys, this is what happens. This is the power of digital learning if you know how to leverage it. And once those 3.5 hours of content was a pure interactive coaching play, where you would not have any nexts and things like that which are so boring, and you would literally jump into a coaching experience where somebody would coach you on basic concepts of programming in that language, give you exercises, be there to tell you if you're going right or wrong, give you more exercises, keep testing you till the virtual coach is satisfied, and then allow you to move forward in the content. So that's what we simulated, and I'm just going to share that with you. Just give me a second. All right, for this experience, I'm not going to play a video, but I'm going to go live and go to one of my browsers and show you how it looks like. Alrighty, so this is where we are.
In this session, we will learn how to convert a CSV file like this one. CSV file is a data file that has values separated by commas. A formatted SAS file looks like this. Here you see that values are neatly assigned under 3 variable names. Household, that takes the value before the first comma. Product, that takes the value after the first and before the second comma. And spend, that takes value after the second comma. Now we are in the SAS coding area. Here we will write the code that will achieve the objective. To begin, we always start with the data step and name the SAS dataset being created. We create the data statement like this. Next, we use the length statement. Length statement tells SAS how much space to use to store the variables.
Now, guys, as you see, we've used the earlier concept that I described, which is using assessment as a tool for content delivery. Now, what's happening here is that this person who's talking to me, he said that, okay, this is the CSV file. We want to make it look like this in the SAS program. How do we do the coding for it? Now, I would just explain that, hey, the length of a specific variable now has to be defined. So my job right now is to define the length of this variable called household. And I have a prompt which says, please input the length that should be assigned to the variable name household, enter to submit. So, let me just click here. I see that, the household variable has got 3 digits to it. So I think anything, if I, let's say, feel that, there are 2 zeros before 1. So what value does 0 have? So let me just go with 2. The 2 digits are fine. And I click on enter. Then what it's telling me is that the length of variable in SAS database should be assigned to more or equal to the length of the value from the input file. So as you can see, the input file, the length of the value is 3. So in the output file, there should minimum be 3 spaces. So as I clicked on OK, it auto-corrected it for me and allowed me to move on. So this is the type of coaching experience that people were, the trainers were giving to people in the classroom, which we simulated digitally. So as you can see, guys, this is all custom coding work. There are no nexts, no nothing, and there is no explanation. I mean, it's just not like a normally learning. It's completely coaching style. So it moves on for me to now identify how many digits will I create for this variable called product. So it says, the prompt here says, please input the length that should be assigned to the variable names product, enter to submit. So I know product is, in the first figure, the product is a single digit, and another one also it's a single digit. So if I just say 1, will I get that right? So okay, so it says the length of the variable in SAS database should be assigned to more than equal to the value. The length of the input file as well, we can assign any value greater than or equal to 1 here.
Next, we will
Fantastic.
use the info statement. It tells us where to read the data from. So we give the path of this file followed by the in-file option DSD, which stands for Delimiter Sensitive Data. It sets the default delimiter to comma. If there are two delimiters in a row, it assumes there is missing value. And finally, if character values are placed in quotes, single or double, the quotes are stripped from the value. Next, we use the input statement. This input statement tells SAS what variables it is reading in.
Okay, so now I'm right now in the coding area where I'm being taught how to write the code. And as I come to the part where I have to define where is that input going to be, so I'm going to say, household and click on enter. Okay, input statement assigns the variable name to the database column. In this sequence, it is input that you want starting column to be household. You will include this in the code here. Fantastic. So it is giving me prompts if I am going right or wrong. So I know the second one is product. So let me write product. Product appears in the second column. So it will be mentioned here in the code. Okay. Fantastic. Enter to submit. So I will say spend, or let me just write product here as well. Okay, so here the spend will appear.
Next, to activate this code, we write run. These are the different statement types you have learned in this session. And remember these nuances you have learned today.
All right. Stop sharing. Fantastic. All right. So this is where we are. Okay, so the style of this e-learning that you saw, guys, was like I said, we simulated a coaching experience. This is a fantastic style if you want to really pick up a technical subject and really replicate what happens in a classroom between two individuals, which is the coach and the coachee, and scale that experience digitally so that all people can get the advantage of having a coach on their side who are literally walking them step by step in their skill development. So this is one piece that I thought we'll talk about. So guys, let me know if you're liking the things that you're seeing. There are a few more that I thought we'll share with you. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is a game that we created in which we simulated putting together a mechanical instrument all by yourself. And this goes from, I'm just picking this up again, and I discussed this case study with one of the initial webinars that I did on how does learning design create business impact. So let me tell you in very short, let me tell you the story behind this. So what's really happening is that this specific company created the products that look like this, as you see on the screen. And uh, the situation turned out in a way where we had to get the customers who bought the product and got it shipped to them to have them try out the assembly themselves. The reason for that was there were too many products sold because of a government regulation that had just come in, and this specific company did not have the resources to send their service engineer just about everywhere, which now was the need of the market, and they had to come up with a solution very quickly because people won't release the payments to this company who manufactured this product unless somebody came and put all this together in front of them. So we created this small 2-minute game. It was a psychology game, if you ask me. We called it 2 minutes because we know that nobody minds 2 minutes. Anything beyond 2 minutes will have repercussions, and people will not sign up to even experience that. So very, very simple game, a drag and drop game that we created for people, where we explain what the product is and showed them that, hey, it is so simple, you can do it all by yourself, and let's just play a game to see how you can put that together. So this is initial part of the game where we explain. You can hover over some things and it'll tell you what it is for. I'll get to the part where we okay. So this is the part where we actually play the game. So you can call for a hint. You can do the complete assembly with all the nuanceical things you are required to do. So it is giving you a sense of sequence. There you go, guys. This specific example was a real win for us. It happened, very early, almost 2011 and 12 is when we had executed this project. Massive wins for us goes to show that learning designers also need to develop consulting skills and some, ideas around innovation, from the point of view that at times you will be presented a wrong problem and asked to solve it. And if you believe what you have been given to you, what has been given to you is the reality, the way it is, then you might just, land up chasing the rabbit in the wrong rabbit hole in a way. So that's why I've we've constantly been saying that and doing some sessions around building consulting skills for learning designers, where they can move even start questioning the inputs and say that I think there is more that we can do to collect the right information before we build the solution. We have to get away from this mentality of as you are talking about your problem, I am thinking about the solution. So this is the challenge that I see with a lot of amateur learning designers who like to just start a full movie, a cinema of what the solution will look like even before diagnosing the problem to as much as required. So the tools are simple. I believe all learning designers are consultants in a way, who give you ideas on how to achieve specific human behavior in the shortest possible time. But like we often say in management, that a ladder will help you get up, but if you are against the right wall is something that you have to figure out up front. So fantastic. So I'll look at some questions. Okay, so did you attend the live class to identify what was being coached? So yes, I don't have your name, but I will say this, that's yes, we attended the live classes to figure out what it is that the coaching experience will entail. We had to do it. There was no two ways about it. We couldn't have made this up on our own. So we for us to also really know, see, most of these guys who were getting trained were engineers. So there is some information that they already come with. There are few points in the training which are in conflict with specifically OOP style programming, object oriented programming systems. So there was some unlearning required, some relearning required. We needed to identify where in that process or in that subject matter that place appears, and then create the right kind of interactions for people to find peace, that okay, this works like this there, but here it works like this. So even to clarify things like that, we needed to anticipate kind of questions people were asking, and in our design we had to put all of them in, so that during the time of scalability and implementation, people will not have a real coach to answer those questions. So yes, we had to attend the live coaches. Okay, Kunal, you're saying that was nice set of samples demonstrating the effectiveness of simulation. Thank you so much, Kunal. Brought out the in-depth study of the subject to make the sims effective. Absolutely. So absolutely great insights and learning. Really clarified a lot of gamification fundas. Thank you so much, Gautam. That's the whole idea. I think the whole story behind building any learning product is is very simply, to me, the way I look at all learning product creation is that is it going to excite my customer, and is it going to build create business impact. So like I said, business impact is what should drive our designs. The designs by itself will calibrate accordingly, and not get caught up in creating excitement. Of course, it's a big part, especially the part where you win the deals or you get the funds, but beyond that, the luster goes away, and what you do will only matter beyond that. So that said, guys, happy to take any questions. Feel free to reach out to me if you're looking to build something like this for your own organization. Don't hold yourself back. Just go all out with the design, with the ideas, and believe that you can do it. I've just told you, most of the work that you saw today was built an articulate storyline. It is no rocket science. There is no coding required. You don't have to be a programmer to build all this together. All you need to do is just have the idea, build a few prototypes, show it to your stakeholders, get them excited, get the funds, get the resources, put everything into an action, and there you go. It will be a great input for you to take the next step in your learning design journey, to be able to create simulations of quality, and give your learners an experience that they haven't seen. So that's the kind of feedback that makes me happy, that here is a type of learning that I have never encountered. So if you get it for your audiences, it just feels so good. It's almost like a fix that you feel so high after listening to such comments. But all that said, we have to be grounded, keeping in mind business impact. So guys, that's all I wanted to share. Of course, we went a little over time, but thank you so much for hanging around. I'm seeing that not too many people have dropped off, so I'm sure you saw some value. Feel free to reach out to me. There are many more examples, guys, that if you're really interested, just reach out to me. I will be happy to share them with you, or we could do a follow-up session with people who are really wanting to do something and with this. And if you are looking to build your own simulations, guys, don't hold yourself back at all. Just if you feel the need, sign up for a coaching session, and there we could really look at what is your use case, and I can give you my best ideas on how you can really crack it with your customers. So make the most of it, guys. And with that, we'll close on to this webinar. More sessions coming up. Tomorrow is a great session not to be missed by Bobby D'Souza. He's, like I've been mentioning, he's a electrifying keynote speaker, a motivational speaker, addresses people in stadiums and things like that. So Bobby's got over 10 years of experience speaking at this level. So fantastic insights you will gain if you're looking to be somebody who can influence people and masses. Bobby's the guy who does it for a living, so he's going to be sharing his own secrets of how to engage learners. So not a session to be missed if you're a facilitator or hope to be one, or if you are somebody who's designing content for facilitators. So a lot of great stuff coming up. So with that, guys, we'll call it off in this webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch each other again tomorrow morning. Till then, bye-bye, and please keep sharing the love on LinkedIn. Please let us know on LinkedIn, let your network know that if you're finding some value. And the whole idea is for me to request that from you is to reach out to more people. There are new versions of this Learning Design Summit being planned, and we'd like to really reach out to more people and create a stronger community of sharing expertise within that community. So guys, with that, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see each other again very soon. And you're most welcome. I don't have your name still, but thank you so much. And bye-bye, Gautam. Bye-bye, Kunal. We'll see each other very soon again. Bye-bye.